substantial evidence about ATF, losing track of more than, I guess, like 2,000 weapons linked to this particular operation. Attorney General Eric Holder requested the inquiry, now being conducted by the Inspector General's office, which is the oversight portion of the Department of Justice. It seems like this thing is just getting started in terms of the new developments, Sarah.
Kimberly, I refer to this as Operation Fast and Sloppy. This was such a shoddy job by the ATF. It's unbelievable. And, Dennis Berg, the rising star of the U.S. Attorney's Office in Arizona, appeared before a congressional committee and resigned effective immediately. I think from the government's perspective, we put a little bit of drugs out in these sting operations, hoping for the big fish and the cartels. And in this case, they thought they're putting a little bit of guns out to get the big fish, and they completely lost track and lost control. And they say that there's 2 crime scenes in Arizona so far where these guns were found, but really there's over 122 guns at 48 crime scenes in Mexico. So now we're helping increase the crime rate in Mexico, and I think that the ATF and the U.S. Attorney's Office should be held responsible very seriously for this, because where does the ATF get its advice and authority to do the sting operation? It comes from the U.S. Attorney's Office.
And that's what they're looking at. What is the connection to Eric Holder? And that's why, James, they have the Inspector General's office doing the investigation.
Oh, absolutely. And, they've only accounted for about 144 guns, maybe 150. We know that there were additional guns recovered at in Mexico when they raided and arrested the head of one of the cartels. But there's 2,000 guns.
Right.
We're going to be reading about these stories for years to come. There's 2,000 guns that are out there. They put them in hands of criminals.
Right.
What do you expect is going to happen? They're going to continue being criminals. They're going to continue shooting people. And unfortunately, there's going to be many more tragic incidents just like this one. It's terrible.
Well, and also there's more on that story on foxnews.com, but I want to move on, Michael, to this next story, which is more bullying cases have parents turning to the courts. I mean, parents are getting very frustrated. They're filing lawsuits. They're sick and tired of the schools not doing something about it.
Yeah, I think it's the right thing to do. I think it's an appropriate place for the courts to be. I think the issue here is going to be what does the research say about bullying and how to protect oneself, and what does the law say, and how do we fill in those gaps?
And what is the obligation, the difference between, Sarah, between what parents' obligation, responsibility, a school district's obligation to prevent injury or, threatening behavior?
Right. And Kimberly, exactly. I think that the parents, you got to look at the parents' responsibility. Did they have notice of the bullying? Did the kids themselves report it? And was the school placed on notice? Were there witnesses to these incidents, and then no action was taken in response? I think that when you're dealing with schools and school districts, there's a certain level of immunity that attaches as well. They don't have an affirmative duty to prohibit bullying, but I know in Los Angeles we have volunteers that go to schools and they talk to third graders and they educate them on tolerance as a way to prevent bullying. But I think that in this particular case, given that the 13-year-old teen takes his life, I think the attorneys for the school district are going to have to look into what was this kid's life outside of school. I mean, what other factors could have led to his suicide? Maybe it's not just the bullying,
and
even if there's enough evidence for the bullying.
Talking about, James, is John Timothy and Tammy Carmichael of Claiborne, Texas. They're convinced that their 13-year-old son, John's suicide in March was the direct result of bullying. They filed this $20 million lawsuit. The little boy was, beat up, thrown in a garbage can, had his head flushed down the toilet, basically like waterboarded him.
Right.
And they said that, all the parents that are bringing these lawsuits, this one attorney has processed 60 to 70 lawsuits, bullying cases. He goes, all these parents want to do is protect their kids and prevent it from happening to anyone else's.
Absolutely. This isn't a case about retribution. This is a case about protecting children. This poor kid, this wasn't the little hazing, you're joining the football team, they push you into the locker, they make you run extra laps, you have to clean everybody's clothes. They tortured this kid. They stripped him naked, tied him up, and put him in a trash can, taped it, videotaped it, put it on YouTube, and some of the reports say that they only took it down because an administrator or somebody in the school that works at the school told them to take it down. That person never reported it. If that person had reported this, it would have been...
And this was shortly before his death.
Shortly before his death. That person should have had how the person did not report it, I don't know. Who they were trying to protect, maybe they were supposed to be watching everybody when it happened, I don't know.